It's your open source advocate, and I'm back with another video, and today we're going to talk about Nextcloud. We're going to talk about Nextcloud from the perspective of building a business and needing the capability to have synced information for documents, for spreadsheets, for presentations, for all kinds of things. And if you haven't looked at Nextcloud in a couple of years, it has really come a long way. Nextcloud really offers just an entire suite of capabilities. It really does, to me, present the open source alternative to OneDrive, to Google Docs and Google Cloud and all those things. It really presents that capability that if you want to self-host everything, you can. But if you just want to support an open source company, you have the option to use their hosting as well, which is awesome. I mean, if you don't want to deal with having everything set up, if you want to have support in the back end of your syncing system, then you can definitely use their system and you can give them a little bit of money, and that keeps the open source project going, which I think is just absolutely terrific. Now we start talking about providing this maybe as a service to clients, or providing this as a way to communicate with your clients, because communication is so important these days. You need a way to be able to not just communicate verbally or through a video call or in person, but you need a way to communicate, here's the work that I am doing for you. Here's what I have completed for you. Here's what I need for you to do in order for me to continue doing my work for you. Those kinds of communications are super important, and they don't have to require a phone call or a video call or an in-person call. They can simply be done with something like Nextcloud, where you basically set up an account for your client, you set up a folder with that client, and you set up documents that are shared through that folder for that client. And you can just let them know through the messaging system or through an email or through any other kind of means that are available through Nextcloud that they have something to look at. You know, here's what I did this week for you in a spreadsheet or in a Word document or in all kinds of different ways of showing that kind of information. Here's a design that I created. I want you to look at it and give me feedback. Do you think this is going to work? Here is a presentation that I've got that I want to give you. I'll be there, or we'll sync up online or whatever. I mean, it's just really a terrific overall tool for those kind of things. This is just so much beyond just document syncing, which is where OwnCloud that turned into Nextcloud really started. And OwnCloud and Nextcloud split as a company. I get that, but really OwnCloud started off as kind of a Dropbox alternative. It was a way for you to sync things between different machines and have access to those documents and things. And little by little, Nextcloud, when they split off, kind of built that out. And they said, you know what, let's put in Collabora with LibreOffice. Let's put in some other options that people want to have with maybe only Office. And let's do some syncing where people are using these things and they can jump on a different machine and work on it, or they can jump on their iPad and work on it, or they can jump on their Android device and work on it. It's really and truly an amazing offering. Now, the version that we're going to install today is 2.0.x, whatever they've got out right now. But what I'm excited about is this version 3 hub, the Nextcloud hub in version 3. They're adding so much great stuff. They're really improving a lot of stuff in the background. Their Photos app is going to have a whole bunch of new capabilities. They're going to have a new Tasks app. They're going to have just a lot of different stuff that's built into the software. And really, I'm excited about that. I don't get excited about software drops very often where there's something new. It's kind of like, well, I'm using it. That's great to have a new thing. But this one, I'm really excited about. This looks like they've really taken a lot of time to start kind of developing out this version 3 hub, and just so incredibly exciting to see that, because that means that this project is successful. It means that it's continuing forward. Let's get into the installation of Nextcloud, and what I'm going to install today is what they call Nextcloud All In One. So if you haven't heard of this, you can install just Nextcloud, and it's pretty easy to get it up and running. And this one isn't super hard to get up and running either. But really, Nextcloud kind of gets you set up with like Nextcloud for the syncing. It'll give you a couple of little things, built into it. And then there's all these modules that you can add on to it. But if you want to get Collabora running, that takes a little bit more effort. If you want to get some other things running, it takes a little bit more effort. If you want to get all kinds of different pieces of the software running, it takes more effort. So Nextcloud Talk takes a little more effort. You've got to go install the plugin and set it up. So what this does is it tries to say, you know what, this is everything that we think most people will want. And we're going to give you this all in one package. So Nextcloud Office, which I believe is Collabora right now. It is definitely the LibreOffice online version, which is great. It's awesome. It opens up the documents. You can do stuff all through the browser if you want to, or you can say, you know what, I want to open it up in my installed app, whichever way you want to, just like Microsoft Office, okay, except without the price tag. High performance backed, Nextcloud files, backend Nextcloud files, which is great. High performance backend for Nextcloud Talk. Backup solution, which is super important, and they use Borg backup for this, which, I mean, again, this is super, super important to have backups of everything you're doing, especially if you're doing this for a business. Even if you're doing this for home, think about this. Like, I've set this up for home. I have my kids, they're setting up some presentations they have to do for school. I want that to be synced, but I want it to be backed up. I don't want that to be the only copy that they've got. I want to make sure that it's getting backed up, because remember, sync and backup are very different things. Nextcloud is built around syncing, which means if I delete it here, it gets deleted somewhere else. Backup means I delete it here, but I've got a copy somewhere else that's going to be there if I need it. Kind of keep that in mind. Then they've got Imaginary. I'm not really sure what this is, so I'm kind of interested to find out. They've got ClamAV for just doing antivirus on your files and all the things that are going on your Nextcloud server, which is important, and it'll be important for your clients to know that you are running that. Full text search is awesome, because when you start searching, it's not just searching the file name, it's searching anything that it can find inside those files to help you find the things you're looking for, which is great. So we're going to go through this installation, and we're going to use Docker Compose. I think it's a really great way to get this set up, and so far I've not seen too much of a performance hit. In the past, when I've set up Nextcloud on Docker, it seemed really slow and sluggish, so it's been a year and a half, maybe more, but I think they've done some work to make this better, because so far I'm seeing really good performance. I'm very excited about that, and again, I'm really excited for Hub 3, but even this version 2 has been really great. It's been so long since I played with Nextcloud. I was happy to do it, and I'm excited, and I want to share this with you guys. So we're going to go through this install, and we're just going to use the Docker Compose setup. It's going to be great. I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers and all of my patrons over at Patreon. Seriously, you guys make this so worth it for me to do these videos every week. I really, truly enjoy it, and I just can't say thank you enough. If you're enjoying these videos, subscribe. Let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job by subscribing to the channel. Plus, you'll get notified when I have new videos coming out. And finally, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, give it a like. Just click on that thumbs up, and that way YouTube knows that you like it, and they'll pass it along to other people that might enjoy my content as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you again. Let's get started. Alright, so there's a few things that you're going to want to have set up in order to run this. If you haven't already been following along inside of our videos, there is just so much information that we're doing in this series for building a business on open source software. We've shown you how to set up a virtualized system with Proxmox. Again, open source software. It's terrific. It lets you set up VMs. It lets you set up LXC containers. Inside those VMs, you can run Docker. You can just do so many things with a really great Proxmox system setup, and it really gives you some flexibility as a business. We've shown you how to set up some networking with something like pfSense or OpenSense. I will come back to those things, I promise. I promise to cover VLANs more in depth, and I will. But I've shown you how to set up the VLANs on the pfSense or OpenSense side so that you can have some VLANs set up and kind of getting ready for your network setup for your business. This can also help you if you're setting up networks for clients at some point. I've shown you how to set up email with Mail in a Box. A lot of you wrote in and said, you know what, you should check out MailCow, you should check out this one, you should check out that one. So I will cover some of those other options later down the road, I promise, because they do sound interesting and I do want to see what they offer. I think it's really great to have options, but I'm covering the things that I'm familiar with, that I feel more comfortable with, just because I want to make sure that if I'm comfortable with it, I can help you with it if you run into issues, hopefully. I've talked about using NetMaker with WireGuard for getting VPN access to your networks, setting up networks in the cloud, connecting networks together, basically using those tools. I've talked about using Zential to set up your Active Directory and domain services and things like that, which gives you a lot of capability because you may not want to use Windows, but your clients might use Windows, and they may not realize that Linux exists. They may not even know what Linux is. They may just understand that they need a computer, and that computer came with Windows, and that's all they know. And if you need to set them up with a really great system, then I think Zential is a good option. Others wrote in about NethServer. I will absolutely cover NethServer. Others talked about UCS Univention, so I will look into that one and try to cover it as well. We have other options. FreeIPA is another great option, but getting Windows to work nicely with FreeIPA is not super intuitive or simple, so that's why I kind of went the Zential route to start with. I've covered quite a few things so far in this series, trying to get you set up and in a place where you'll be ready to really start running a business. I feel like with the things that I've shown you up until this point, which is about 7 or 8 episodes, we also did Zabbix, which is a great tool for doing monitoring. No matter where you're looking, you've got Zabbix. I've got a video on CheckMK from the past that wasn't part of the series, but definitely worth looking at as well for monitoring if you're interested in that. But we're getting into the meat of business applications at this point. So I'll be covering some really great applications. I will cover ERP applications. I will cover CRM applications. I will cover all kinds of applications that you can use for running a business. Applying those applications to your business may take a little bit of thought on your part, but I'll do my best to give you ideas. But today I wanted to talk about Nextcloud because it's so important, and I feel like this is a really important thing to kind of get going out of the gate so that you can start having good interactions with your clients, good interactions with anybody who works with you or for you, and really help you move that ball forward, because I understand that Office software is necessary in business. Office software is super important these days. And today with things like Office 365 and Google Cloud and other offerings, so I totally understand that with Office 365 and Google Cloud, they give you some great collaboration tools. That's where I think Nextcloud is going to come in for you. The collaboration side of using something open source is very important, and people have asked me about this, and I'm sure they've tried Nextcloud and been dissatisfied for some reason. But let me see if we can bridge that gap and figure out where that is. So I'm going to show you how to install it. I'm going to show you how to get it running today and do the basic configuration stuff, and then we will see what all's in there just in this all-in-one package. So to get started, we're going to first create our folder structure. So I always do this on a new server, on my current server. It doesn't matter. This command will help you get the things set up that you want. And I like to put all of my Docker files, my Docker folders inside of a parent folder called Docker. So you can do mkdir-p and then Docker and then put a slash, and then we're going to make it Nextcloud. What this says is make a directory, but if Docker directory already exists, don't create it. Just use the one that's there. If the Nextcloud directory already exists, don't create it. Use the one that's there. But if they don't exist, please create them. So when we hit enter, it's going to create that. Now I'll cd into Docker, and then I can just hit /Nextcloud, and here I am. Now there's nothing in here yet, so we're going to create a docker-compose.yml file. So we're going to do nano space docker-compose.yml. Now I'm going to paste in what we need. Let's just start right up here at the top and really look at this file. So this is a version 3.8 Docker Compose. So if you get any kind of griping about this version number, you can always drop this down to 3.7, 3.4, 3.3. It usually will work anyways, but 3.8 is just the version that's set here. So there's going to be a volume that we're going to create down below called Nextcloud _AIO _master container. So we define that up here by giving it this format, and then we tell it that the name is going to be Nextcloud _AIO _master container. Now normally I like to say put this folder that I'm mapping in the same directory as my Nextcloud where I'm working right now essentially. I tried to do that, but that is not what this is doing. This is creating a volume, and it expects this volume to be in a very specific place on the host, and if it's not, it just freaks out and gives you an error. There may be a way to work around this, but I tried it several different ways and I never could get it to work. So just understand that this is where this needs to be. Next is our services, and that's going to be Nextcloud as our service. The image is going to be Nextcloud /all-in-one latest. This is what we want. This will be the latest version of that. It's going to restart unless it stopped. It's going to give it the container name of Nextcloud-AIO-master container. The volumes it's going to create are going to be that Nextcloud AIO master container, and it's going to map that right to mount Docker AIO config. And that's fine. Just leave that as it is. Don't change it. var run docker.sock and var run docker.sock read only. This is because this is going to create a container called master container. You're going to log into that master container essentially, and it's going to tell you, okay, first tell me what you want this to be called. What's the web address of this Nextcloud service that you're starting? So we're going to have to set up a reverse proxy. We're going to have a few things, and you can see here kind of what I've got set up already. So we're not going to change any of these things, but it's important to understand why it has this mapping. On the ports, this is 8080 to 8080. So 8080 is a very common port. It is up to you if you want to leave it as 8080 or if you want to change this left side to something else. I'm going to change this to 8092. I don't think that's used up. Maybe I'll do like 8195. How about that? I know that one's not used on my host. The important part is that you make sure that this this port that you set on the left side of this colon is not used on your host. Never change the port on the right side of the colon. It's very important that you don't change that. But the left side you can change to any open port on your host. Environment variables that it's going to set. The Apache port, 11,000. If you already have something using 11,000, you need to change this port and you need to remember what you change it to. It's very important. The Apache disable remote IP equals 1. Don't change this number. Nextcloud trusted domains. This is very important. You need to set this to the domain that you're going to set up inside of the reverse proxy. In our case, we're going to use Nginx Proxy Manager. You need to set this to the domain that you're going to set up for your Nextcloud instance in your reverse proxy. And then you need to set this to the reverse proxy IP address on your network, the host IP address. So for this, I'm going to change this because I already have this running somewhere else. So I'm going to do nc.routemehome.org, nextcloud.routemehome.org, so nc. Down here is trusted proxies. Again, I just put in the same address that I have for my actual proxy host up here. So make sure you put these things in. Make sure you know what these are. If you don't, go find them and then fill them in correctly. Really, these two items and maybe this port are the only things you should be changing in this file. So I'll have this in my show notes in my description so that you can grab it and get it set up. You save it with Control-O, double check that the name is correct. Control-X to exit nano. Just clear that out. Now we're going to start this up with docker-compose up-d, and then I like to do the second command. So I put 2 ampersands, docker-compose logs-f. When I hit enter, this is going to start pulling down the Nextcloud AIO master container image. It's going to start that container, and once that starts, it's going to show me the logs. That's why I do it this way. So it's going to pull all of these things down. It's going to take just a minute. Just be patient. Let it run. So once that gets running, you get a bunch of logs. As long as you don't see a bunch of errors, things should be running okay. It looks like it did everything that we expect, so we can just do Control-C to get out of that. We'll clear out the console here. And we're going to go back to our browser. And we're going to go to the IP address of our host on our network. In my case, it's 112. And we're going to go to that port that we set on the left side. So I put 8195. And I forgot one thing. So it tells you, whenever you get this bad request page, it tells you, hey, you tried to go to something that's HTTPS, but you went with HTTP. So make sure you put HTTPS:/ up here before the URL. And then it's going to give you a security warning. You should be able to advance through this. It's running on your own network and you intentionally ran this software. And you're going to get this kind of message. It's going to say Nextcloud AIO setup. Right here it's got this long password. I highly recommend you take this password and you copy it. And you go and you put it somewhere where you can find it again. Because you may need it in the future. My suggestion would be putting it in something like VaultWarden/Bitwarden so that you have it in your password manager. It's very important that you don't lose this master password. Just make sure you don't lose this. You can change it later after we finish some of the setup, but for now you want to put this where you can get to it again. Alright, I've pasted that into something. Once you've got that copied, go ahead and hit this button to move forward, and it's going to ask you for that password. So paste in that password. It does show it in plain text. No idea why it does that, but it's fine. It's really a password to get through this step. We're going to click on Login. Give it a little bit of time. Now, when you get to this page, you need to have some things set up because the first thing it's asking for here is the actual, what are we going to use for our URL? You need to have that set up, and it needs to be set up on your proxy manager. So we're going to go open up Nginx Proxy Manager. If you don't have this installed, I have videos on how to get this installed. I'll have instructions in the show notes that will help you get not only this installed, but Docker and Docker Compose installed on your server, plus Nginx Proxy Manager so that you can get in here and actually get things going. So Nginx Proxy Manager is great. It's a user interface that helps you set up proxies on your network. So I said I want this to be nc.routemehome.org. I own the domain routemehome.org. I have a wildcard, which is star.routemehome.org, as an A record at my DNS registrar, and it is pointed to my home IP address. So anything.routemehome.org comes to my home IP address, and then my firewall says, oh, I see you're requesting routemehome.org. I'm going to pass you through to the proxy, which is Nginx. Nginx sees the request and says, do I have an entry for what you just handed me? And if it doesn't, it just sends you to a generic congratulations page and you're done. If it does, then it'll move you forward to the login screens and authentication and stuff like that. So that's why this is a really great program. So now I need to put in the IP address of the host machine, which is 112. And here we need to put in 11,000. We're going to tick block common exploits, WebSocket support. I'm going to click on SSL tab right here. I'm going to click on none and I'm going to say request a new certificate, force SSL, and HTTP2 support. And then right here I'm going to make sure my email's filled in. And then I'm going to click on the I agree button. I'm going to click on save. And this should spin for just a minute. As long as that can get to the server and say, hey, did I reach something? Let's Encrypt will issue you an SSL certificate. There we go. If it goes away with no errors, you got an SSL certificate, so that's good. So we've got nc.routemehome.org set up. We can go back to our system here. So we've got this open. So we're going to type that in. nc.routemehome.org. Okay. I'm going to click on submit. The system went out and checked and it said, okay, you're good. I didn't get any errors. That's great. It changed the way the page looks. And then it gives me these options of what do I want to install. So this just gets me to the point that I can now install all the Nextcloud stuff that I want to run. So I'll install ClamAV. I'll set up full text search. I'll set up imaginary. I want to get everything installed. Why not? Time zone change. So before we do all that, I'm going to type in my time zone. So it's America/Chicago, which you can see I've typed it before. So you should type in your time zone. If you're not sure what it is, go out there and look for the time zones. Make sure it's got, continent/country and then whatever, continent/whatever the time zone is. So for me, it's America/Chicago. I'm going to hit save for that real quick. I'm going to hit OK. It's fine. If you need to reset the time zone, you can scroll down and just click on this button. But other than that, we're going to go back. Now let's make sure we check these again. I forgot that it was going to erase these when I checked them, but there we go. We're going to click on Save Changes, just so it doesn't uncheck them. And now we're ready to click on this button here that says Start Containers. So this thing's going to spin for a minute. This will probably take 10, maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes. So as your Nextcloud containers get pulled down and get running, you'll see them kind of going through this change. And this page refreshes on its own. There does come up like a little refresh button if you're impatient. You'll see it kind of pop up once in a while. It does refresh on its own as well. But it kind of shows you the status of each of those containers. And what you're really waiting for is for everything to say that it's running and ready to go. So we're just going to wait. Again, this does take a little time. This has probably been, at this point, probably been waiting about 5 or 6 minutes, maybe 7 minutes for just kind of seeing this level of status. So be patient as you continue. Now, if you don't see these update, maybe within 10 minutes, you might kind of go start checking the logs. And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute with Portainer. So if you're wondering like what's installed, you can go over to Portainer and then type into your search, just type Next. That should get everything that's just for Nextcloud kind of showing in the screen. Here you can see that it's got Apache and it shows unhealthy, but it's probably still starting up. You've got a few others down here that are already showing healthy. This one for domain check is going to say exited. It's fine. You don't need that one to be running. But you do want Nextcloud and Apache to be running and talking to each other. It could just take some time, so be patient. When you check the logs, you should see information going across. There shouldn't be errors, but it's starting up, and it does take just a bit of time for that to happen. You can also look at the logs in the terminal if you prefer to do it that way. When you go back to the containers, if it still has your filter, you can also check the logs for Apache. And really it says it's waiting for Nextcloud to start. So really Nextcloud's going through its startup, then Apache will go through its stuff, and you can see it starting to. So if you just sit and watch this, it should refresh on its own occasionally and give you some more information. But if you get impatient, you can click on this button to see if it's got any updates for you as well. So when you click, it'll go out and check, and you can see now that it shows everything is running. Once you get everything to say that it's all running, you'll get this button that says Stop Containers, and this is kind of a nice interface. This is what that var docker sock is doing, is it's providing this interface for you that you can always log into. This is the AIO basically admin interface, so you would always use this port to get in here. but it also goes out and looks and says, hey, there's new images available, and you can start and stop the containers from here to get those new images to basically pull down and install. You can do it from Portainer, you can do it from the command line. It's kind of up to you, but this is a great way to manage this stuff. I appreciate that they put this together for us. For your backup and restore, like I said, if you want to back this up, you can do that. You can give it a path and basically hit start. It'll run your backup. Worthwhile to know where your paths are going. What are you backing up to? What's it going to do? So just make sure you understand what this is also referring to as you go through that. For that big password that we use to get into the system, you can change it here. So you can basically say, I want a different password. You can create one with Bitwarden and really get a nice complex password. It's up to you if you want to keep the one you had or create a new one, but then you would set that here. Then you still have your optional add-ons and your time zone change as well. So once everything's up and running, something to take note of is that it gives you the initial user as admin, and it'll give you a password that it generates. So it's very important for you to understand that this password is something you're going to have when you go to log in. So I'm going to copy that password. You can click on this button, and it's going to try to throw you over to your Nextcloud install. If everything goes well, you should see a screen like this, and you're going to type in admin here and then paste in that password that they gave us, and we're going to hit login. We can just tell it not to save for now. And now I have the dark reader theme on, so let me turn that off and you'll kind of see what it's really going to look like here. There we go. But here's all of the Nextcloud stuff across the top that's installed and ready for you to use, which is a lot of really great tools. So I'll kind of go through those tools here in just a minute. But first, I want to go to the settings. I want to create a new user, so I'm going to go to users. And of course, you can start creating groups and other things like that. But first, I just want to create a new user that's going to be me. You guys would, of course, create your own users. I'll give it the way I want it to display my name. You can use full name. You can use whatever you want. And then a strong password. You want to make sure you give it a nice strong password. Once you've given it that password, you're going to give it an email address. And then I'm going to add myself to the admin group. And I'm going to say add new user. So you can see my new user is here. I'm just going to go ahead and log out as this default admin that they created. And I'm going to log in with my user that I just created. Now, I'm just using the Nextcloud built-in authentication. This can be set up to use Active Directory or LDAP, other methods of authentication. And I've got a video out there on how I did that with a free IPA from back in the past if you want to check that out. But we can also take this for a spin later and actually use our Zintial install to get our Nextcloud up and running. So each time you log in with a new user, you basically get this kind of wizard that shows you here's how Nextcloud works, here's all the things that you can get out of it, here's the stuff that you can do, here's the different places where you can get apps from, and just different information. Once you're finished, you'll kind of jump up to your dashboard is what they call it. This is kind of configurable as I recall. Up here you can get like location and weather. You can go set these things up in settings, and I've gone over this before. They had a little bug where if you changed it from Fahrenheit to Celsius, you had to like change the language and then set it back or something to get it to take. It was kind of weird, but anyways, I have a video from the past for that stuff. The things that I think we're interested in today is what are some of the tools that are installed by default. So let's just first go look at the files folder. So they're going to have some default files built into this thing for you to check out. So it's kind of cool because they do show you like the things that you can do here. So you have this documents, you have photos, you have talks, so you have different folders kind of preset. They have their base Nextcloud information, so you can keep this, use it, look at it, read it, get rid of it, whatever you want to do. But then you can click into the documents folder. Here's like a docx so that you can open it up. And you'll see that it's going to open right up inside of Nextcloud. .docx doesn't matter. I mean, this is just such a compatible world at this point. If you're opening docx, it's going to open fine, it's going to look fine, it's going to work just fine. You can just click on the cloud to go back, or you can click the back button up there to go back. It's kind of up to you how you do that. You can go back to the home out of the documents folder, and then they have this nice folder called templates. When you go in here, you can see some really cool stuff that you can actually do with the Collabora stuff that's built in online. So right out of the gate, you can just click here. It's going to open up the business model kind of drawing, I guess is what you would call this. I'm not sure. It's kind of but you can see over here on the side, you can create more slides or pages, whatever you want to call it. And you can kind of create these business model canvas type things, or you can, anything you can imagine you can make on this. It's basically a nice little drawing and text app. It's pretty cool. If you go back, you can check on this one, which is ODS. I believe that's like the Excel spreadsheet. Yeah, basically. So this is like Excel. So they've got a chart that they've created. They've got the data down here. You can change the data to see how the chart changes. If we change this to say, instead of 2, I change that to say 8. And I go up. And I change this to say 3. Then we can say OK. And you can see that it's got our changes right here where we've got 8 and 3 and 5. So it makes the changes to the chart automatically. So pretty cool. I mean, this is just some basic stuff, but they're showing you like, here's some things you can do right here in the browser. This is not me opening up LibreOffice. I could open it up in LibreOffice if I wanted to on my desktop system, as long as I have LibreOffice installed and ready to go. But they've got some really great templates where they show you some different things that you can do. But you can do DocX, you can do XLSX, you can do those things. They'll open up, they'll function. 99% of it will function. There will be a few things that may not function correctly between the systems, but the open standards have gotten really to be excellent, and even Microsoft is starting to stick to them pretty nicely, which is great. So you've got this nice online system. Now you can go out here to the right, you can set this up to be shared, you can click, so you can download the document, you can rename, you can move or copy, you can see the details. So if we click, it gives you some nice details, and again, you've got some really good options over here. So you can go into a chat, basically centered around this document. You've got comments, you've got sharing. So if you click on sharing, if you have other people in the system, you can just start typing their name, and it's going to start saying, oh, hey, I want to share this with somebody. And you can see the names here. You can start typing. It'll give you names to choose from. You can choose from groups. If you create groups and put people in groups, you can choose from those groups, and then you can give permissions to edit, to delete, to change the name, to move, whatever you're going to do. Pretty cool. You can see version history. So if you make changes to these things, they do have version history that you can go back to as well. You can make comments, and you can see comments about the documents here. And then, of course, you can see activity that's been going on the documents if you want to. So you've got activity information. Now, some of these things are just stuff you get right out of what's going on. But this is a nice overview of things that are going on, things that you can open, things that you can check out and see. You've got Talk, which I think is also getting a redesign in the version 3, which might be kind of nice because Talk was okay, but it definitely could use a little bit of an upgrade, especially we're using it for like team collaboration. I think what they're going to have is going to be a little bit better. So I'm looking forward to that change. I imagine that Contacts is probably one of the most underused pieces of Nextcloud, to be honest. I think this is an incredible addition to anything where you've got syncing, where you might want contacts. And they have Card DAV, which is awesome. That means that you can set up your phone or your computer or your tablet or anything else to sync with the contacts that you're setting up. But not only that, you can group your contacts. So if you have businesses that you're doing work for, if you're an IT consultant, an MSP, if you're anybody who does any kind of consulting or business, this is a great way to set up and keep track of your contacts and be able to find them very quickly and have that syncing to your devices, so that as you're making changes on the devices, that information is getting synced back into your contacts, and you can use that for your emails and your phone calls and your chats and everything else. So I think this is just probably one of the most, I would guess, one of the most underutilized pieces of Nextcloud, and it shouldn't be. This is a powerful thing when you're talking about doing something for business, when you're talking about having a tool like this for business. Calendars is next. Now, this is another one where you get WebDAV out of the box. So setting up your calendar, setting up your team's calendar, setting up your family's calendars, setting up shared calendars. This is going to be an amazing tool for that. It's got this nice web-based calendar. I think their new calendar, again, is getting an upgrade. It's going to be a little bit better. It's going to have some nice functionality for like how it sizes better. So if I'd have done this, it would have kind of scaled better, I believe. And then if I grab on this edge over here, I want to say that it does like a much better job. Yeah, it's going to be pretty nice. This isn't bad. Don't misunderstand, but I think it's definitely going to be a nice upgrade for the calendars as well. So Deck, this is one that I like a lot because they have tasks. Tasks and Deck are a little bit different to me. Tasks are things, let me go to tasks first, in fact. Tasks are things that you're creating for yourself. They're reminders for you to do something. They're tasks that you're creating for yourself to go do things, because these you cannot assign to other people. You don't really share tasks. Tasks are there for you, and you can set them up to give you reminders, which is great. Deck, to me, is for teams. This is where you set up things to do, and you can set up a board for success. You can set up a board for development. You can set up a board. You can set up all kinds of boards on here. But basically, you set up a board. So let's just let's add a board. Let's just call this Project Iridium. Why not? Sounds good, right? So here's our board, Project Iridium. We're going to click here and we're going to start working on our board. So we're going to switch over to Project Iridium. You can see the title at the top to know which one you're working on. So once you create the board, you need to create lists. So we'll go over here to the right to this plus, and we're going to click on Add List, and we're just going to give that list a name. So we're going to call this Project To Do. And you'll see it gets a list right here. We're going to add another list, and we're going to say In Progress. We're going to add another list, and we're going to say Waiting on Client Info. Add another list, Waiting for Review. And one more list, and we're going to call this Done. So you've got this nice board. Then you can click here and you can add a card to this board. So we're going to say Set up server in-house. Now we can go and edit this card. You can say Assign to me, which is really easy. But if you have a team set up, you can actually go in and assign that to a team member, and it puts it on the card. So for now, I'll say Assign to me. So it gets my initials here. I know it's mine. So we're going to go into the card details here, and look, you've got all these things that you can do. You can set up attachments. You can put in comments. You can put a timeline on it. Let's put a date. So this is due by the 28th at 16:30 military time there. Then we can put some comments, right? Need to have the physical server installed at the client site. They have the cabinet and plug-ins ready to go. You can add attachments with pictures, things like that. Again, comments for anybody who's adding comments. You can see all the comments that are going on. And then you're really ready to go. So once you're done, you can just click on that, and you can see that it's got some other information, the way that it sets the cards. So if you've ever used Trello, if you've ever used Jira, if you've ever used any of those kind of tools, you're going to understand how this works. You add the cards that you want. This is my card. I say, you know what? I'm going to get started on this. It's in progress. I've done it. I just drag it over. When I say, you know what? I went over there. The door was locked. I called the client. I put it here. I can click on it. I can add my comment, and I can say, went to site, door locked, no sign, called client and left message, waiting on callback. I've added my comment. My boss, whoever, knows why this is waiting for client info. They know why it's in this status. When the client calls me, I can move it back to in progress. When I'm finished with it, I can move it to done. It's really simple. It's a really great way to do this. And again, you can assign these to other people in your organization, and you can keep track of different projects. You create a board for a project, create different task lists for those projects, put your tasks in, and let them run those across. It's a really simple, intuitive way to keep track of the things that you're working on. Even if you work by yourself, this is a great way to keep track of your different projects, what the statuses are, leave notes for yourself to help you remember, where am I at in this project? What am I doing? You can invite your clients to your Nextcloud instance and keep them separated, and only give them access to certain boards. They can see their project board, but not other people's project boards. They can see the documents you put in their folders and not other people's folders. This is a massively powerful tool. This is just incredible. And there are other plugins that are not set up even in the all-in-one. There are other things that are not set up that you can go out there and get to make this an even better system. I really, really think that Nextcloud is a truly amazing piece of open source software. It's your open source advocate, and I'm back, and I've set up a store with a little bit of merchandise. I love being your open source advocate, but I want you guys to be the open source advocates with me. So if you want to, get out there and get some of this stuff. And if you do, let me know what you think of it. Thank you for subscribing. I've shown you just a little bit of it. I've helped you get it up and running. I've helped you see how to get it started with the all-in-one. It does want you to have a URL. It is very important that you understand that. If you're doing this for a business, you need to have a website. You need to have a URL. You need to be able to put different subdomains on that. So make sure that you set up a subdomain for this. Make sure that you're ready whenever you're doing the setup. And this should go pretty smoothly. This is really a great piece of software, and it's only going to get better. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on the open source journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.